Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Before we start, 3 days to go and I collect this. Yes, that's right, pictures of cats on the internet. It's the secret of success, I tell you. Yes, well, adorable though she is, that's quite enough of that, and let's get back to the replay. This is Philomel in the Gremyashchy. It's a Soviet premium Tier 5 destroyer. You don't see them too often because the only way you could get your hands on one of these things was as part of a pre-order bundle during the closed beta test of World of Warships right before the game went live. Nevertheless, those lucky few who managed to get their hands on them during the limited window when they were available are rarely disappointed. The Gremyashchy was considered to be a little overpowered when it first appeared, although it's definitely been affected by power creep since, but it's still a very good Tier 5 destroyer. It has a fantastic 12-kilometre range on its 130mm guns, fairly good shell velocity, flat arcs, and hard-hitting, armour-piercing shells. Unfortunately, it's the turret traverse that really lets this ship down. 36 seconds it takes to rotate the turrets 180 degrees, so while this is a very, very good gunboat, it's only really a very good gunboat at medium and long range. At short range, the ship will easily outturn the turrets, and you'll find it next to impossible to keep them pointed at the target. The other surprisingly good thing about the Gremyashchy are its torpedoes. They have an 8-kilometre range, the kind of range that you're not likely to see on a Soviet destroyer until you get to Tier 8 and above. However, they do have a kind of long reload, and the ship itself is not particularly stealthy, with a 7-kilometre base surface detection range. For the moment, Phil is quite content to just rain down high explosive shells on the enemy for attacker over there, who has almost certainly launched torpedoes. For attacker has 10-kilometre range torpedoes, and he's right at the extreme limit of his range, but that doesn't mean he can't actually score any hits on Phil if he's not careful. Phil here is not the only Tier 5 premium Soviet destroyer in this match. The enemy team have an Okhotnik. I like the Okhotnik. I also like to call it the War Canoe. There it is, and one look at it will explain why I like to call it the War Canoe. The thing about the Okhotnik is it's very narrow and it's extremely long, comically so. And that length houses lots and lots of guns and lots and lots and lots of torpedoes. Hey, you and the Yabari, I said lots of... oh well. On the bright side, at least he spotted the Okhotnik's torpedoes for us. Not that Phil was in any danger from the Okhotnik's torpedoes. They only have a 4.5-kilometre range, and the Okhotnik is a good 5.5 to 6 kilometres away. You can see his torpedoes just running out of steam in the water up ahead of us. And the fact that the Yabari's torpedoes just went straight through the middle of that smokescreen without hitting anything is a pretty clear indication that a ship the size of the Okhotnik is no longer inside that smokescreen and has in fact made himself scarce. So, Phil decides it's time to move up. Now there's an Omaha on the far side of the island over there taking advantage of the Okhotnik's smoke, and he is kind of close. The Omaha is one of those rare American cruisers that actually has torpedoes, although they have a very short range, only 4.5 kilometres. They're in range now though, and the Omaha, his spider sense must have been tingling. He's activated his hydro. Phil switches to armour piercing. The 130mm AP is absolutely deadly to cruisers at this kind of range, but the Omaha has gone undetected. Widespread torpedoes, because he doesn't know exactly where the Omaha is. Starts turning away because the Omaha has torpedoes and he is in range. And you can see that at this kind of range, when he starts turning, it's next to impossible for him to get the guns pointing at the target. As it happens, he didn't need to, somebody else took the Omaha out, and the fact that the Omaha died means that he's no longer spotted. In a way, he's actually kind of lucky that this ship does easily outturn its guns and he wasn't able to bring them to bear and get shots off against the Omaha, because if he had, he'd be spotted now by the fur attacker, the New York and the Orion. And getting shot at by any of those guys right now would be very bad because he's in the process of capping. Getting hit while you're capping tends to be kind of counterproductive, but he's managed to get away with it. Now, you might have noticed that there are 2 carriers per team in this match. You might have also noticed that Phil's team have lost 4 ships and the enemy team have only lost 1, but let's just focus on the carriers for now. Having 2 carriers per team is a bit of a nightmare, particularly for a destroyer at tier 8 and above, but it's not really that much of an issue down here at tier 5, because tier 4 carriers are, and I say this with the best will in the world, they're a bit crap. When you're dropping 1 torpedo per attack run, for example, you don't really expect to do a huge amount of damage. They do provide a lot of utility for the team, however, in their spotting, because there's also not an awful lot of anti-aircraft firepower down at this kind of tier either. But because of the kind of limited view range of the aircraft, that spotting utility is really only restricted to spotting battleships and cruisers, and not so much destroyers if they're smart and they've turned their anti-aircraft guns off. Hello, for attackers back. Switches to armour piercing. Range is less than 7 kilometres. See if we can get some citadels. It's only a matter of time. Why has the Fur Attacker done that? There's the citadels. I did tell you this 130mm armour piercing was good. Well, the Fur Attacker's obviously done that to get some torpedoes away into the smokescreen. Phil knows that. He's already on his way out. The October Revolution with him also appears to be anticipating the torpedoes and is turning it towards them. Yep, there they are. Fur Attacker turning the other way. Probably should be expecting torpedoes from the other side as well, but he's been taken out. That's only the 2nd enemy ship down, by the way. Phil's team have lost 5. Although with any luck, he can make it 3 by finishing off this Okotnik, who's just chalked up the 6th kill for his team by taking care of that New York. The Okotnik's engine is out. He doesn't appear to be running last stand, and it looks like he's popped his smokescreen. None of which, of course, is going to save him. With any luck, this is going to be Phil's first actual kill. Yep, there it is. Okay, things just got a lot more interesting. 2 enemy cruisers have now surged through the gap in the slot over there. However, they can't see him, thanks to the Okotnik's smokescreen. However, they're steaming through that gap at full speed. Phil's surface detection range is 6.8 kilometres. So they're probably going to spot him, at least the Kirov is, any second now. And Phil's smokescreen isn't ready to go. Fight or flight, which is it going to be? Well, flight would seem like a good option. Widespread torpedoes, because he has no idea which way the Kirov is going to turn. And while running away when spotted in a destroyer is usually a good idea, at the moment they've got these 2 enemy cruisers in a crossfire and neither of them appear to be targeting Phil. So, for at least as long as that situation remains, he's loading the armour piercing, because it's a Kirov, it's a tier 5 cruiser, so it's made out of citadels. What? They are. They all are, even the Fur Attacker. And Phil is, well, making hay while the sun shines. He should probably really be switching to high explosive around about, well, yeah. The armour piercing is very, very good against broadsiding cruisers at ranges of around 7 kilometres or less. Further than that, if they're even slightly angled, even though the AP is good, you're probably better off switching to high explosive. But anyway, the Kirov's dead. That's what matters. He's still spotted by the Königsberg, but the Königsberg has his hands full with a Miyogi and an Omaha, and has just sailed out of shooting range, so he's gone undetected. Ah, the Königsberg did just sink the Omaha. Well, the Omaha was on low health. He took a bit of a beating helping to finish off the Kirov. The Miyogi's on full health, and appears to be sailing into a bunch of torpedoes, and has in fact also been sunk by the Königsberg. 8 enemies, 4 ships on Phil's team. I guess if you need a job doing properly, you just have to do it yourself. Cap point up ahead, controlled by the enemy team. It'd be nice if you could sneak a capture of that in the process, as well as taking the Königsberg out. That, of course, is going to rely on some assistance from his team's carriers, because if he's going to be capping and shooting at an enemy cruiser, he's going to have to take advantage of his smokescreen, otherwise he's not going to be able to cap. And that means he's not going to be doing any of his own spotting. And this really is what Tier 4 carrier aircraft are good for, because they don't do a huge amount of damage. I mean, when your torpedo bomber squadrons are dropping 1 torpedo at a time, you're clearly not here for the big bucks. But all the time you're setting up those attack runs, largely without getting any aircraft shot down, because anti-aircraft firepower is so terrible down at this kind of level. You are keeping those targets spotted, particularly if they're blazing away ineffectually at you with their anti-aircraft guns. Did we just lose the October Revolution? We did. Okay, it's now 3 against 8. The Königsberg is now within 6 kilometers, so he's turning to get his torpedoes away. This, however, is making him a sitting duck for these 130mm armor-piercing shells. Phil doesn't hang around in the smokescreen waiting to find out whether or not the Königsberg got the torpedoes away. He's out of there. Now, this, of course, means that he is now spotted by the enemy carrier's dive bombers. But, well, did I mention that Tier 4 carriers are a bit crap? The biggest threat at the moment is the fact that he's been spotted, and those guys back there are now shooting straight at him. And since he does have enemy aircraft directly overhead and already in an attack pattern, there's absolutely no point whatsoever in keeping his anti-aircraft guns turned off. So, with a flick of the switch, he turns them back on and starts hammering away at the health pools of these incoming enemy aircraft. But it's more important that he just keeps moving and he keeps manoeuvring and stays inside the cap circle. He's desperately trying to not get hit. Because he's got the island between himself and the enemy surface ships, and he's manoeuvring and making it really difficult for these enemy aircraft, he's actually getting away with it. Enemy destroyer spotted, Wakeful, closing in on his 2 remaining carriers. That is a problem, but right now it's not Phil's problem. So he probably shouldn't expect a great deal of carrier support at the moment, as they're desperately attempting to ward off the attentions of that Wakeful over there. But, well, Phil doesn't really need any friendly carrier support at the moment. You'll note he's turned his AA guns off again, and he's no longer spotted because he's beaten off the attacks of the enemy carriers. And they're probably so far away, and their aircraft are so slow, that he's probably got a good minute or 2 before he's going to have to worry about getting spotted from the air again. And with his AA guns turned off, his detection footprint from the air is so small that unless they pretty much blunder right over the top of him, it's going to be very difficult for them to find him again. And that gives him time to do something about the disastrous situation that his team is currently in. And he's going to start by seeing what he can do to that Kuma up ahead, who hopefully has overextended ahead of the rest of his team. But hey, let's not take any chances. Smoke screen up. Checking the Kuma's course with his torpedo target indicator. He's been forced to turn thanks to that torpedo, and he's probably only just noticed the smoke screen now. Phil's got the armor piercing loaded, but the Kuma isn't given broadside. Don't worry, he will. There's a smoke screen over there. He's going to turn to give broadside in order to get his torpedoes away. And when he does that, Phil's going to start farming citadels on him. And, yep, how many times have we seen this happen? Yeah. He almost certainly got those torpedoes away, and the Kuma's torpedoes definitely have the range to make it to this smoke screen. And here comes the rest of the team. So, 8-kilometer range on Phil's torpedoes, he gets them away. Now, he's definitely going to get spotted when he exits this smoke screen, but he can't hang around because, yep, there's the Kuma's torpedoes. Then again, if he turns his anti-aircraft guns off, he doesn't have to get spotted, because those aircraft are too far away to see him. Ah, bollocks. All of the time and effort that he put into securing Bravo, and somebody just has to come over and kick his sandcastle over. Okay, this is a problem. Then again, that New York looks like he's about to have problems all of his own, because those torpedoes do look very good. Don't really want to get spotted by the Koenig. Don't really want to get spotted by anybody. I think the New York's about to eat 1, possibly 2, maybe 3 torpedoes. There's the Confederate award. 2 torpedoes and a flood. Okay. 1 or 2 more would have been nice, but we'll take it. Now then. How much attention was the Koenig paying? I mean, he's obviously heading through the slot here to link up with the Orion and the New York and make short work of those 2 surviving carriers. But, as long as he's on the other side of that island, he's not going to see Phil sneaking up on him. And Phil's torpedoes are just reloaded. Now, it could be that the Koenig is sitting there at the far side of the cap with his guns loaded, waiting for Phil to come around the corner, but he isn't. He just couldn't contain himself and had to shoot at the carriers. which means that he now has nothing to defend himself other than his secondaries, and he is at least trying to turn into the inevitable torpedoes, but Phil just didn't give him a chance. So that was kind of nice. That'll teach you for taking my cap. And of course, with the Koenig dead, and no enemy aircraft anywhere near, he is, of course, once again, undetected. Which, you've got to figure, must be making that New York and Orion very, very nervous. But they have their hands full with the two carriers. I mean, the carriers aren't doing a huge amount of damage. They're only dropping one torpedo at a time, although it's particularly annoying damage if it does hit because it's heavy damage, and the battleships can't repair as much of it. But the attacks that Phil's carriers are making are not just keeping the major surface combatants of the enemy team spotted, they're also forcing them to sail predictable patterns in order to avoid those attacks. Not something that the enemy carriers are doing. Phil's sitting here in the cap circle with a dirty great big "I am capping Bravo, here I am, come and find me" sign painted on his forehead, and they're not even trying. In fact, he's just been surface spotted by the New York as it takes a couple of dive bomber hits. I guess he got confident after the attack on the Koenig. How much do you think the New York is sweating around about now? Also, how much do you think the New York is cursing his carriers? Like, stop attacking the enemy carriers. We're battleships. We've got this. Find that destroyer. But nobody appears to be listening. Judging by the way that New York is manoeuvring, however, this is definitely not his first rodeo. Phil does his best to anticipate the New York's movements, releases the torpedoes, gets missed by the Orion, and since his guns are pointing in this direction, and he's spotted anyway, what the hell, fires a couple of raking shots with the 130mm rifles through the New York superstructure. Continuing to manoeuvre to avoid the torpedoes means that the New York can only really fire back with one of its waist turrets, or possibly that was a secondary, and it misses anyway. There's the high caliber, but the torpedoes all missed. Well done to the New York. Well, they all missed the New York, but they're going to sink the Orion. I know, you wouldn't believe it was possible. How did he not know they were coming? They were spotted 4 kilometers earlier. Right now, the New York is probably cursing with teammates like this. Who needs enemies? How could it all go so horribly wrong? A minute ago, we were winning 8 ships to 3. God damn it. I mean, it's funny. It's not funny for the New York. But it's funny for us watching. That poor guy. I mean, geez, what does it take? How the hell did the Orion manage to sail into every one of those torpedoes? The poor old New York is now on such low health that he has to even start taking the carrier-dropped torpedoes seriously, and turning to avoid them means that Phil is sitting here in open water, but the manoeuvres that the New York was forced to take have turned the guns all pointing the wrong way, so he couldn't shoot back at Phil, even if he wanted to. And he probably very desperately wants to. Well, maybe he can take one of the carriers with him. That's probably the best. Oh, there's the fire. And he doesn't have a damage control. He might still be able to take one of the carriers with him if he gets a gun reloaded before that fire finishes burning him down. But no, it was not to be. And there's kill number 6. And now, Phil's team are ahead on points at last, and all they have to do to win is, well, not die for the next minute. I'd like to think that the friendly carriers knew exactly what they were doing. That it was all part of the plan all along. But I'm realistic enough to realise that what we in fact saw happening was as much an artefact of the enemy team's success as it was any kind of competence on behalf of the ships on Phil's team. It was the fact that the friendly carriers were under direct attack from surface ships that made them focus their attacks against those surface ships. And it was the fact that the enemy carriers were not under direct attack from surface ships or aircraft that made them focus their attacks on the enemy carriers who were spotted, rather than going looking for the pesky little Gremyashchy who was about to ruin everybody's day. I'm fairly sure that's what really happened. But we'll be generous and just say this was a sterling example of teamwork in a Tier 5 battle. Because, hey, you never know, it might actually be true. Philomel, congratulations on a game. Well played. I'm sure it's not one that you're going to forget in a hurry. And hopefully everybody else enjoyed it at least as much as I did. Because that is it for today. As always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.